So I've had a couple of ideas about how we can make this better, this edge. The problem is that whoever put this piece on hasn't put it on straight. You can see visually, but I'll show you what I mean. You can see there's a massive gap down it. One end it's touching there, and it's touching here, but there's a gap in the middle. So we need to straighten that up. So my initial thoughts was maybe use a steel plate and then put sponge on it and cover it, sort of something like that. Obviously this is not cut to shape, but that was the initial idea, and then weld the bolts to it. But the problem is the distance. Sorry about the bad camera work, but the distance to make that level is about 3 centimeters under there. So the next idea we came up with, because we were washing our hands, was this. So I've taken a piece of wood, there's a groove in it from, strangely enough, from the golf sign up there when I built that frame for the golf sign. So these were some bits that were left over. So what I've done is I've shaped it now, so it goes in there. And you can see if I put it down, it's exactly the same. I've got it now in line so that this comes up against it, and this is 2 centimeters, and I need another meter of padding, because if we put 3 on it, it'll squodge down too much. It'll squodge down. But you can see now the line's really nice and straight. So I'll put the piece of, it's the same colour, but this is obviously for the arch, the wheel arch. So I'll put it on and I'll show you, mock it up to how it would look. So that's just mocked up, that's just sitting under there, and obviously there would be sponge on that to bring it up a little bit further, but I think that would look nice. And obviously I'll round the corners off here so that when we pull on the vinyl and glue it, it's not on a corner. But I think that'd look quite nice, if you can imagine, but obviously with sponge on it, and then that would bring it almost level. Not that level's that important, but you can see that it's just down a bit. By the time we put the sponge in it, it's right on the money. And I think that'll look really nice. I'm not obsessed with the level of it. It's more to make it look pretty, I think, at the end. But I think that would look far superior to the way it was. And as I say, with the sponge in it, if we used all 3 centimeters of sponge, it would push right down. And when we go to put this like cupola or tonne on it, it might end up with bumps in it like that. It might look shit. So I think this is probably the best way. And this fits really. This piece in here is a. It's not even. There's no bolts through it at the moment, but even that, it's tight. The way that goes in, the grooves. It's a really nice tight fit. And then what we do then is I'll countersink some holes in here and here, and put coach bolts down through it so that this can be tightened underneath, inside underneath onto this, so it pulls it down nice and tight. So that's the plan. I'm starting on that one over there, but I think that grey will look really nice against the top. So Max mentioned this when he came over. He said that these look like window runners, which in actual fact they are. And this is why they've left this piece open all horrible here. Is obviously I think when they initially wanted to convert the car into a convertible and modify it, they tried to have these back windows that the Rover would have had, the one that was a production car, and they've probably tried to do it the same thing with a window in it for the canvas. And if I show you here, you can see in that runner quite clearly that comes up and down from the door. I'll move the camera over, and you can see the same thing here. If I put that into that groove, you can see this is why they've cut it out the way they have. So obviously the idea was to have a window in this point. But I think what's happened is it's become technically difficult to do it, or and then they've just abandoned it. And I think this is why this is out of shape. But the fact we're covering it now, and it'll save me cutting all this back out. So I think that's the, I'm surmising this, but what Max was saying I think he's right. I think this is probably, these things here were to hold the winding mechanism or something, but it's definitely been abandoned, and they've just gone with a plastic side window on the canvas. Okay, so I've secured these two now with these coach bolts on either side. There's just normal nuts on them at the moment, but I'll put nylocks in the end. So we've got the foam for the top. I need some thinner foam for the side, and hopefully middle of the week we should get the vinyl for it. So the next thing now is trying to make something for these door cards. I want to make like a padded elbow rest, armrest, whatever you want to call it. And the problem with these companion bins is they go up at an angle, and then they kind of have a round piece on them. And what I want to do is use exactly the same idea with this groove in it, and for it to sit, and then I'll use a Dremel to make the round part up the top there. So I've marked this one already. You should just be able to see that. So I marked this one. I have to cut this down and get it straight. And the wood is obviously the easiest way to do it. And obviously all these wood, what I'll do is we'll coat them in some kind of sealant so that the water or anything doesn't get to them. It's very hot in Croatia, so it shouldn't be an issue. Before they're padded up. And then I'll have to work out exactly how we secure them to the back, but I'm thinking possibly a piece of metal or a piece of strip of aluminium, whatever, and attach that to the wood once it's covered, so that you put the whole thing in one shot. You can actually see the copper there, I think, coming through. Hopefully you can see it just a little bit. And obviously this is sat on the floor. Well, it's gripped by a grip rod right going all the way through, and this wasn't taken out because we only need to take the front bit out where we repaired the floor, so consequently we didn't see it. But what was happening was this was draining over 3, nearly 4 volts from the starter, and this is what it's almost like having a bad earth, exactly the same as if you've got a bad earth having a bad positive as well. And so obviously what's happened is water's got in over the years, it's corroded it inside, the resistance is wrong on it. So we luckily I have an auto electrician down the road. I went down yesterday and we put a complete brand new cable from front to back, and from the solenoid as well. We had 2 new cables made, and it started straight away. So along with that we had some other little issues that we didn't even notice that were a factor, but they were contributing to the whole problem. And one of the other problems we had was, this is a brand new distributor cap, or fairly new, and what had happened is the carbon tip on the spring in here was jammed backwards. Normally it's the kind of first thing you would go to, the simple stuff, but in this particular case when we tested the plugs they were firing. But when you see them firing outside, that doesn't mean they're going to fire in the cylinders. And what I mean by that is you've got to imagine there's high compression in there, and now that spark has to be strong enough to get over that high compression. So the fact that they're sparking there doesn't mean that they're sparking in the cylinders, if you see what I mean. Anyway, so we sorted that out. But obviously it was close enough that it was jumping from the rotor arm to the carbon. So. But it's all these things mount up, and the issue is we don't have any real history of this car, so these things are kind of coming to us afterwards. And this would actually back up the situation that Jeremy told me about, where they'd had trouble turning it over, so, you know, it was going and thinking it was this bad earth. It probably was a bad earth at the time. But obviously this cable has deteriorated over the years, and this is the situation we're in. So it's worth having a look, and we'll show it to you at some point. That's how she looks with a new bumper on it. Bumper was completely mangled, and so was where the license plate goes. So yeah, really coming on. Okay, so this is the the basic idea. It's obviously not trimmed down, the corner's too far out and so on, but I've left it long because I have to cut a groove in that for it to go into that companion bin. And you can see where I put the tape, it's too high. So I need to get that in absolutely straight line before that groove will go in there properly. And at the back here, what I'll do is I'll put a bracket underneath the wood there. It's attached to the wheel arch, not to the armrest on the back. And on the front it'll sit in that groove. But I'll have to put something behind it to support it. Everything's finished on the engine compartment. We've just got a couple of small things to do. We're going to make a little aluminium cover for that because there's no vent, there's no plastic elbow in there for the vent, so we don't need it. We'll just cover it and paint it the body colour, and then we can put the bonnet back on. But as you can see here, the bonnet is in quite a mess. It's like under seal, but it's almost tar like, and obviously nothing's going to stick to this the way it is. So we're going to have to clean it back. It's a real mess. Put some benzene on it, but it's starting to soften up a little bit. But we obviously can't put any heat on it. We're going to damage the paintwork. But really it's going to take a lot of cleaning to get that right. And then what we'll do then is put this soundproofing in it. We'll cut this up. This is an old carpet set I had. And it should be okay for the bonnet. And we'll put this soundproofing in. It doesn't really need it because it's a convertible car, but unless we can clean it up really nice, I don't know. We'll see how clean we get it. Maybe we can clean it and we can paint it and it'll look better, but it looks absolutely horrible at the moment. This stuff is really terrible. Anyway, there, the car's running lovely. Max came over and gave it a little tune up for us because he knows these cars inside out, and everything's checked. Fuel's good, timing's good, tappet clearances, everything, and it's running like a little top now. So yeah, so still a lot to do, but I'll try it. I think it's going to be cold, but I'll give it a try. Just need to tighten the front part of the exhaust up because we had it off to put the cable. I think we took it off for the cable. For some reason we took it off anyway. But yeah, there we go. Get this cleaned up, put that on, and then it's just interior to do. Interior in the hood anyway. So, well, the stuff should be here on Monday. The parts we need, the new faucet pump and a few other bits and pieces. And hopefully the material for the interior should be here by, I don't know, next weekend. So, on that note, as usual, stay safe, keep the faith. Hope you'll follow us along for the last bit. And we'll do a big, I've talked to the owners, and they're quite happy for me to reveal it once it's all finished and done. So you'll get to see it here. Take care.